Hello, Facebook Live. Hello, Instagram Live. Hello, YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, no matter where you're tuning in from. Appreciate the views and the support. I wanted today to talk about the number one way to combat high labor. High labor is something that restaurants are constantly struggling with. Some restaurants, their labor is really out of line, and they don't even know it's out of line. Some restaurants have it figured out and then monitor very carefully, have it down to a science. But even those restaurants still wish they could shave something off their labor, because folks, labor is your single biggest expense in this industry. In the restaurant industry, labor's more than rent, labor's more than food, labor's more than anything. It easily adds up your cost of labor. So here's a game. I want to share with you a game that you can play with your restaurant staff that'll make them aware. Now, here's the first couple steps in identifying that you have high labor, first of all, and then what to do about it, and then how to work with the staff with it. So, for example, there's been many times in my restaurant when I feel that my labor is high, there's been many times that I've actually posted in the kitchen what our percentage of labor is. So the first thing is to bring the awareness to your staff. That's the total, that's part of the first step here, is to make them aware that, hey, this is what our target labor is. This is what our actual labor is. Now, first of all, your staff thinks you're making a killing. If you're the restaurant owner, your staff thinks you're making a killing because all they see is a busy restaurant. All they see is a lot of people coming in to eat. They see people drinking. They see food trucks coming in and delivering. They see all this action happening, but they don't sit at your desk with you when it's time to pay all the bills and to do payroll and do all that kind of stuff. Because if they did that, they'd probably be freaking out. So here's the very first game you want to play with your staff. You take 100 pennies, 2 rolls of pennies, you open them up. You put them on your counter, on your bar, by your cash register, on your food counter, on a table. You take these 100 pennies, you lay them out, and you say to your staff, you go right down the whole row. You go, Johnny, Jenny, Sally, George, Larry, whoever they are, say, tell me out of these 100 pennies on the table here, how many of these pennies, when they go into the register, do me, as the owner, Marcus, put into his pocket as profit? How much money am I actually making every 100 pennies that goes into the drawer? How much am I making? And you'll be surprised what Johnny and Jenny and Sally start saying. They're like giving you folks, I've done this exercise many times. You will be surprised how much money they think you're making. They're like, well, yeah, you're making like 40 cents on the dollar. I'm like, oh man, I wish. You're making 30 cents. You're making 25 cents on the dollar. Everybody thinks at least 25%. So if your restaurant's doing $1 million in sales, a lot of us have restaurants that are doing that, they think like, yeah, we're making 100 and 250 grand is going in the owner's pocket. And that's the farthest from the case, all right? Most restaurants are lucky to pull a 5% profit, 7% profit, 10% for a really good restaurant. Some restaurants have it figured out and they'll get double digits, 15. And the big volume ones that are doing 3, 4, 5, 10 million, 8 million, 6 million, 5 million, they might be running 20%. But these are such well-oiled machines. Some of these are chains. And you make it up in the volume, but a lot of us don't have that massive volume to make it up. We're sitting there doing 600,000 in sales, 800,000 in sales, $1.2 million in sales. And we're trying to figure out how to balance everything year round. And the staff basically is like, they're always like, well, the owner's making money. Why is he cutting my hours? The owner's making money. Why is he, doing this? So by playing that simple game and explaining to your staff that I'm only really taking 5 cents on a good year off of that 900,000, $1 million that goes into the register, I'm only taking 5% as profit, but I've invested my whole livelihood, folks. I've put everything on. I've probably taken a second mortgage on my house. I've probably taken my life savings. I probably quit my job. I probably, we've done so many things. I left a 6-figure job, folks, to open my restaurant. I left a 6-figure job to open my restaurant. And it took me years and years and years and years to even come close to coming back to what I used to make. So people just automatically think, well, yeah, the restaurateur is making money. He's there rocking and rolling. And that's the farthest from the case, folks, the farthest. So now after you identify that game with your staff, that simple game of saying the penny game, then you start posting your labor in the kitchen, in behind the scenes. 52% labor this week, which by the way, 52% is way too high. 41%, way too high. You post our target's 28. Here's what the actual labor was, 33, 34, 36. And so make your staff aware that, hey, so if you're doing $1 million in business, every 1% that your cost of goods and your labor comes out, that's $10,000 more that you have to pay bills with, put in your pocket, take a vacation with, pay payroll with. So you post that and you make the staff aware and have them buy into the fact of this is what's going on here and this is what I have to do. Because staff is always constantly hitting up, I need more money, I need more hours. And me as a restaurant owner, I'd love to say, yeah, totally, I'll give you more money, because I understand we all work hard. I understand my staff works hard, give them all more money. But if there's no money there, where does the money come from? And the staff, again, doesn't understand that because they think you're raking it in. So the penny game is super useful. Like, you're like, well, what penny am I getting this from to actually pay you? So you put goals there, like, okay, staff, our goal is 28%. We're at 43% right now. I've got to get down to 28%. When we get down to 35, we'll have a pizza party, or we'll do this, or we'll do that, or knowing that, hey, when we get down to a certain percentage, there'll be things that I can help you guys out with. We can, have a party, do a bonus, do something to help me get to my goal. But the biggest thing is, and I've met restaurateurs like, I don't want to share that information with my staff. I'm like, well, then you're going to still keep fighting the battle, them thinking that you're making all this money and thinking of the fact that, well, how in the world do you balance things out? So it's super important that they actually buy into that philosophy, or they buy into the knowledge. And I'm not asking you to get very specific with them, like, oh, well, we did, $1.36 million in sales last year, and my salary was this, and this chef's salary. I'm not asking you to share specifics like that. Just share percentages with them. So what, labor is 40%, labor needs to be 28%. Food was 36%, food needs to be 28%. So now here's the one thing that you have to understand on the second side of the equation of labor. So there's something called prime costs. Prime costs is where you take your cost of goods, your food and alcohol, your cost of goods, and your labor, and you combine those two together. And from there, you would actually then figure out the overall prime cost. So in the restaurant world, restaurants need to stick typically under 65% of labor and food combined. So if you're running high labor, your food costs going to be way down because you have a lot of labor there and you're prepping food and you're taking food from scratch. But if you have a very low labor, you might have a higher food cost because you're buying prepared foods in. You don't have somebody there cutting filet mignon and taking the scraps and being able to make a dish out of the scraps. You might be just buying 8-ounce pre-cut fillets, paying a premium price for it, having them coming in cryovac, individually wrapped. You might have that situation on. So this is why it's a balancing act of your prime costs. It's never a true reflection of just labor or just food costs or cost of goods. It's a reflection of both. So don't freak out if you start running numbers like, oh my gosh, my labor's outrageous. Oh, my labor's outrageous. Run food costs too. But if you know that your labor is up there, so realistically, when I was in culinary school and operations classes, they were like, yeah, a third. A third for labor, a third for food costs, and a third to pay the rest of your bills, and maybe you'll have 10% left over. That was what my professors always taught me. It's hard to run under 30% labor costs in a lot of places now, unless you're doing volume. Wait staff gets paid more. The tip credits are less, especially in New York State. All across, minimum wages are going up like crazy, $15 an hour in a lot of cities across America, a lot of states. So there's more and more of this increased labor going out, and food costs keep rising and rising and rising. So it's hard to stay, 33. I mean, it's hard to split that up anymore. So, but folks, you really want to keep your prime costs under 65%, cost of food, cost of goods sold, and your labor under 65%. If you can rock it under 55 or even 50%, if you can do under 50%, you've got a really awesome business. You've probably got a really profitable business. So let your staff buy in, play the 100-penny game with them, let them enlighten them, let them know that, I've literally had cooks that I'd buy a new blender because I needed a new blender. And then dude would get mad at me like, why are you wasting, you're spending this money, you're making all this money, this, that. And Meantime, I was paying him like the most in the kitchen I've ever paid. This one guy, he was like, dude, we need a blender, and you think I'm making all this money, and I'm not. And they get this thing. Employees get like disgruntled, like they start judging. Like you buy a new pair of shoes, you buy something, they start judging the owner. Like, oh, they can buy this, they can buy that, they can, But the reality is you as the owner, you and I as the owners, we're the ones who have our livelihoods invested in here. If my business were to close today, I'd have to like rack up and say, what do I owe these people that I have outstanding bills with? The staff doesn't do that. The staff just gets a new job and goes to the next place. They might have bills in their personal life, but that's something different. But for me, for a lot of us, it's like, well, there's just no simple exit strategy out of the restaurant business if we're restaurateurs, because we have to figure out what's happening with the rest of the lease. Do I owe money for that? Do I owe money where do we owe money? So that's the hard part. So let your staff buy into the fact of, hey, folks, I'm really not raking it in. And this is the reality of the industry standards. Industry standards are 5 to 7, 10%. I'm at 5% or 4%. Don't even let them know what percent you're at. This is the average, folks. I'm lucky if I put 5 cents in for every single dollar. All right, hope that helps you with your staff. That should be one of the things that you do when you bring on board new staff. You have hire somebody new, play the 100 penny game with them right off the bat. From day one, they understand from day one that every time a glass drops and breaks, that might be $6, but that's $6, $6, $6. Every time a steak is overcooked, every time a dish is dropped, every time something broken, every time a guest leaves without a good experience and goes and writes a bad review, every time something like that happens, this is all part of the paycheck that the owner should be getting that they don't get. The owner can't cash in on, because these are experiences that the staff might not think are a big deal. They might not think this is a big deal at all. But in reality, that's $6 glass every day, 2 glasses a day, 1 glass a day, the silverware that goes into the garbage, all that every day is massive when you look at the end of the month. 2 forks went in the garbage today, 2 glasses broke, we misfired 2 steaks, 2 burgers were overcooked, this, that. Yeah, there's a couple $100 that just adds up there left and right. So, all right, folks, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And until the next video, drop some comments here on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer. Thanks for watching.